All right. Good evening, everyone. What's up, Nate? How you doing?
What's up? What's up?
Oh, not much, man. You hear me pretty good over there?
Yes, sir, I can.
Cool, cool, cool. All right. Well, let's go and get this thing started. All right. So, I'd like to welcome everybody to Hebrew News Network this evening, where we try to discern prophecy based on the Bible and try to help others get understanding as well as to what's going on today in our time. So, we're going to go ahead and look at what we got going on today. What you want to address first, Nate?
It doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Can start in order, really. What?
Well, the first one I have up is pertaining to United States has begun mass movement of ground troops to the Middle East.
That's the first
And
one for me.
that's the first one you have as well. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let's just look at that. All right. So this right here is on the website Hal Turner Radio Show. It says this morning the United States Transportation Command began the mass movement of U.S. ground troops to the Middle East. Numerous 747 aircraft configured for troop movement began taking off from the continental United States toward Europe, with final destinations showing places like Kuwait. At least 453 people per flight. A passenger configured Boeing 747 operated by U.S. Transportation Command through Atlas Air, tail number N482MC, with 453 seats departed Baltimore with a routing through Ramstein Air Base before continuing to Kuwait. Numerous other flights are also ongoing. And as you can see right here, the only reason for moving these types of troops is for a ground invasion. Think Iran. So definitely important for us to point that out because as we all know that we are gearing up for war, and that being the case, we can get a jump on things, not necessarily to instill any type of fear, but just to have a jump on everything. That way you're always informed. Good afternoon, good evening, Sister Cheryl. And in addition to that, we just want to let everyone know when you come in, we had to change this week's broadcast to tonight. That does not affect our normal broadcasting times, which is our Tuesday at 7. But we were out of town going to see Nate's grandfather, my father, and we just got back in today. So we wanted to make sure we can still get it done this week. So Nate, just looking at this article right here, what you think about that?
Well, I think like we talked about last time, there doesn't seem to be any progression for a positive, change. It just seems to be progressing towards, more tension going on in the Middle East. Really,
Yeah.
the storm
Yeah.
continues to brew.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Definitely some to pay attention to. I just always, like I think we were talking today, it's always something coming up in the news. So, especially pertaining to war. So we
Absolutely.
will not run short of that type of.
I think you muted yourself. Can't hear you. He's having some technical difficulties. Let me make sure it's not on my end. We still can't hear you.
All right, there we go. I don't know why I did that. I didn't do nothing. I'm just sitting here. I barely moved.
I
But
thought something got unplugged or something.
no, I barely moved, man, and it stayed in there. So guess it's just so sensitive, you know what I'm saying? But we're good to go now. So, but yeah, like I said, we definitely won't fall short of that type of information pertaining to war as we gear up to war and Armageddon. Let's go look at this other article here. And the next one I have is the fear of nuclear war. Fear grows of fears grow of new nuclear arms race as key U.S. Russia treaty expires. And you can go ahead and read that one, Nate.
Okay. Without the New START treaty, which caps the number of deployed nuclear warheads at 1,550 on each side, there will be no limits on the U.S. and Russian arsenals.
I need to scroll up. Do you have yours?
Yes. Yes, I
Okay, there
can.
you go.
I can screen share if you need me
I'm gonna try to stay with you though.
to. Okay. Without the New START treaty, which caps the number of deployed nuclear warheads at 1,550 on each side, there will be no limits on the American and Russian arsenals. Not only are there no discussions between Washington and Moscow on what comes next, but also officials from both countries are left guessing about the other side's capabilities and intentions,
Hmm.
increasing the possibility of misunderstandings and an unrestricted nuclear arms race not seen since the 1960s, experts and officials warn. For the first time in more than half a century, we face a world without any binding limits on the strategic nuclear arsenals of Russia. And the United States Secretary General Antonio Guterres said in a statement, calling it a grave moment for international peace and security. In a Truth Social post on Thursday, President Donald Trump referred to the treaty as a baby negotiated deal and
Badly.
said that rather badly negotiated, I'm sorry, badly negotiated deal, and said that rather than extend it, we should have our nuclear experts work on a new, improved, and modernized treaty. The U.S. and Russia possess nearly 90% of all nuclear weapons, or more than 10,500 warheads combined, according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute's 2025 assessment. China's nuclear arsenal currently stands at 600 warheads, but is growing faster than any country's by about 100 new warheads a year since 2023, the report said. Together, the three powers' nuclear arsenals could wipe out life on Earth several times over. The Cold War is full of examples where each side had preconceptions and assumptions about whether the side was doing, some of which was faulty and which led to
Expensive.
competitions on who was seen to be ahead or behind, said Mike Albertson, who was involved in negotiating, ratifying, and implementing New START. The treaty's demise represents the end of a process of bilateral strategic arms controlling back to the 1960s, where we and the Soviets and then Russians worked together first to limit and then reduce our nuclear arsenals, said Albertson, Deputy Director of the Center for Global Security Research at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California. Russia suspended the treaty in early 2023 over Washington's support for Ukraine. At the time, Moscow said it would still observe agreed upon restrictions since the invasion of its neighbor, and amid the U.S. led negotiations to end the war in Ukraine, the Kremlin has exploited the nuclear threat as a military tactic. In September, Russian President Vladimir Putin offered to voluntarily continue to abide by the treaty's limits for another year. Trump said in October the offer was a good idea, but there has been no official response from Washington. If it expires, it expires. We'll do a better agreement. Trump
Mm.
said in an interview January 8th, arguing that China, which has been building up its nuclear weapons, should be a participant. Beijing has shown no interest in nuclear disarmament talks.
Wow. And personal loss is good right there.
Okay. For former Soviet and Russian negotiator Nikolai Sokov, who spent nearly 45 years of his life working on nuclear arms control, the lapsed treaty feels like a personal loss. Everything I did in my life is now gone, he said.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to touch on something right quick. So let's look at one more, and then let's look at some scriptures regarding that, and then we'll come back to it. But I wanted to show you. I wanted to let's tie this in together right quick
Okay.
because it's very important. Very important. Hey, brother Kevin, how you doing this evening? All right. So let's look at this right here. Right here. So now this coincides with the article that we were just reading pertaining to nuclear war, right? And mainly we'll go back to the article that Nate just read, but I just want to kind of tie this in together so we can kind of elaborate on it a little bit. So this is from Live Science, and it says here, doomsday clock ticks 4 seconds closer to midnight as unregulated AI and mirror life threaten humanity. The bulletin of the atomic scientist now says humanity is a metaphorical 85 seconds to global disaster. So, for example, there's this like somewhat of a doomsday clock in Chicago. And it's like, it's like the scientists are somewhat, gauging the destruction of humanity based on how all the different things as far as war is concerned, all the different atrocities that are going on throughout the world, the killing, the fighting, they say global warming, which I don't believe is a thing, but they say that, you know what I'm saying, is these are different things that conjure up us getting to the end of the world. So this particular clock was at 120 seconds, I believe. Yeah, well, 125 seconds. And as you can see here, it went down to so it dropped by 40 seconds. So that gets us closer to midnight. So by us getting closer to midnight, in other words, they're saying that's how close we are to the world ending, right? And as we read further into this article, which will tie into the previous one, notice what they're basing it on. So it says here, the doomsday clock, which reassesses the state of the world annually, is now set at 85 seconds to midnight, the closest it has ever been to heralding a man made global catastrophe. Humanity continues to court species threatening disaster through nuclear brinkmanship, which is what we were looking at on that previous article, right? But we're getting closer and closer to that. But the Lord, He's gonna stop all that before it get there. A failure to address climate change and a hasty rollout of artificial intelligence, according to the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, the organization that updates the doomsday clock. So that's based on their perception. We have about 85 seconds to midnight. Now that's a big jump from 125 seconds, right? That's a big jump. The nonprofit founded in 1945 by Manhattan Project scientists who were raising the alarm about the threat of nuclear war said urgent action is necessary to avoid catastrophe in the near future. Our current trajectory is unsustainable, they wrote in their report. National leaders, particularly those in the United States, Russia, and China, must take the lead in finding a path away from the brink. And I find that interesting, Nate, because at this point we're over the cliff now. You know what I'm saying? There's really no coming back from that. Um, but something else was said in there. Let me just go back right quick, finish reading that. As we publish this statement, the last major agreement limiting the numbers of the strategic nuclear weapons deployed by the United States and Russia, New START, is set to expire, ending nearly 60 years of efforts to constrain nuclear competition between the world's largest nuclear countries, right? So it's kind of like, like I said, it's coinciding with the first article that Nate was reading, but you can kind of see here that these countries are mainly, um, you know, concentrating on getting all these different weapons for war. And the Lord said that was going to happen. And we're gonna read a verse pertaining to that. But the agreement or the treaty pertaining to, having some type of control as far as all these weapons are concerned, that treaty has now ended. And kind of gets us closer, based on what these scientists are saying. In addition, the U.S. administration may be considering the resumption of explosive nuclear testing, further accelerating a renewed nuclear arms race. These escalating conflicts sit against the backdrop of accelerating climate change, which countries have also failed to control. The international response has become profoundly destructive, according to the bulletin scientists, who cited a lack of commitment to phasing out fossil fuels globally and attacks by the Trump administration on renewable energy technology. So you can go and read that, look a little more into that, but this is what I wanted to point out as far as this is concerned here. Like I said, both of those coincide, but I just want to show you something in this article right here. Okay. So when you come back up here, right? Let's see here. Okay, right here. So it says the US and Russia possess nearly 90% of all nuclear weapons, or more than 10,500 warheads combined, according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute's 2025 assessment. China's nuclear arsenal currently stands at 600 warheads, but is growing faster than any other countries by about 100 new warheads a year since 2023, the report said. Together, the three powers' nuclear arsenals will wipe out life on Earth several times over. So, in this case right here, Nate, so I wanted to read that again because I wanted to bring out the word pertaining to that. So let's go look at let's go look at Joel 3. Well, first let's look at Matthew 24. Matthew 24, and let's start this at verse 15. Matthew 24 and verse 15. There's just a few verses I want to check out on this. All right, you got that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, if you can't read that for me.
When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso read, let him understand.
So what does it say in verse 21?
For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be.
Okay, so now, so the Lord has given us, given us certain signs to look at in the Bible pertaining to His return, and one of the main things that we have to watch out for is individual coming out of Rome, which we all know is the Pope. If you have any type of understanding on the Word of the Bible, especially what we teach, we know that the Pope is the one that will be considered the abomination of desolation that the Bible talks about. But when he is put in power, like the scripture's saying here, and which is very important that we have to pay attention to in verse 21, for then shall be great tribulation. So we know we have different things that are going on now as far as destruction and, a lot of different, like I said earlier, atrocities and violence and sin just taking place now, but earthquakes and pestilence and stuff like that, different things that are going on in the world. Sin is at a pretty high rate, but there's a certain time that's coming that's going to climax all of that, which is called the Great Tribulation. And the Lord is warning us. This is Jesus that's doing the talking. Matthew 24 and 21. He lets us know once his abomination of desolation is set up, he says, then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. Then what does he say in verse 22?
And except those days should be shortened, there
Uh-huh.
should no flesh be saved.
Go ahead.
But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened.
Okay, so that's why I wanted to come here pertaining to this particular article, because as you can see here, he said at the end of right here, it says together the three powers nuclear arsenals will wipe out life on Earth several times over. So just imagine that these countries came together. Well, not came together, but they got so much arsenal, so many nuclear warheads that they can wipe out the whole Earth. And like it says, several times over. However, this is where Jesus comes in, because he's going to make his return just in time to stop this from happening. That's why it says, if those days weren't shortened, there would no flesh be saved. That's why it says, and except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sakes, those days shall be shortened. And the elect, in this case right here, we just talking about the children of Israel, because these are the elect that the Lord has chosen to do a job. Not that anybody else can't be a part of the family, but it starts with Israel first. The Lord has, he does have capability of saving other nations outside of Israel, but he does have order, which we have to abide by. But I did want to point that out. One more verse I want to look at pertaining to this right here, because, Nate, if you can see an article, it seems like, just look at this right here. The U.S. and Russia possess nearly 90% of all nuclear weapons, or more than 10,500 warheads combined, and they keep on going. China's nuclear arsenal currently stands at 600 warheads, but is growing faster than any country's by about 100 new warheads a year, right? So we can see how the focus is to not necessarily make sure humanity is fine, or the inhabitants of the world is fine and at peace. These countries are more so focused on getting as much war material as they can. And according to the Bible, notice what the Lord is going to say pertaining to that. So look at Joel right quick, and then we'll get back to the articles. I just want to point these out. Joel 3. And that's what we do these episodes for, is to tie things together according to the word. So these individuals that are in power right now, these are the Gentiles according to Genesis chapter 10, right? And the Lord here in Joel 3 is referring to his return. Just like in Matthew 24, you're going to have all these things coincide together. The Lord going to come back, and he's going to gather his people that have been scattered throughout the world in worldwide captivity. But in addition to that, let's see what's on the Lord's mind in this same chapter. Let's pick this up at verse 9. Joel 3 and verse 9.
Proclaim me this among the Gentiles.
Uh-huh.
Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears.
Uh-huh.
Let the weak say, I am strong.
Okay, and that's what I wanted to point out, because for those on the outside looking in, as far as like mentally, I mean, kind of look at all these different events that are going on, may not have a good comprehension as to why, like Tupac said in the song, they got money for war but can't feed the poor. And it just seems like if you look at society today, it's a lot of that, a lot of gearing up for war. Like we read an article here, it's like that's what's on their mind, getting war material all over the place. But just like the word said, the Lord said, tell them to beat their plowshares into swords. Swords, we know, those are used for war. But in this case right here, now we're talking about, in this case, it would be like the nuclear weapons and stuff like that, and all the different types of things that they have to go to war. And essentially, what it's going to be is what this is going to turn into is mankind trying to fight against God. But I just want to kind of tie that together, to show how um, they can have their mindset on trying to get all these different weapons and things of that sort. And for the most part, they don't even know why they're doing it. But like the Lord said in Joel 3:9, he said, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. The Gentiles are the one that's running the world right now. So let them know. Let them know to what? Prepare war. So China, they're gonna keep getting more warheads, right? Russia, they're gonna keep getting more warheads. America, they're gonna keep getting more warheads. Now, at this point, I'm not 100% sure where America is going to fall into this category, considering that, when you look at the Bible, it talks about the West and the East going to go against each other. And the West and the East, in this case right here, we're talking about everything relative to Jerusalem. So we don't know how that's going to play out because, the War of Armageddon going to take place right outside of Jerusalem. So maybe they will use some soldiers like we saw earlier, Nate. Had some soldiers from here leaving Baltimore, going over to the Middle East and stuff like that. So maybe they'll help in that sense. But the ultimate war, Armageddon, is going to take place outside of Jerusalem. But back to what I was saying in verse 9, he said, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Then in verse 10, he says it. He said, beat your plowshares in the sword. Your plowshares meaning, the things that you use for farming equipment, to create crops and, to get your crop and stuff like that. And, you ever take a ride throughout the country and you see they have different types of material that's used for plowing, different types of material that's used for planting and sowing and stuff like that, right? Well, the Lord is saying, take that stuff that you use for that. In other words, take the money that you use for that and go ahead and put it toward warfare. Put it towards swords and stuff like that, because you're gonna need it. So I just want to kind of tie that together for we got too far. I just want to tie that together to explain why these countries are doing that, getting all these different materials ready for war. Beat your plowshares and the swords and your pruning hooks and the spears. Let the weak say I'm strong. So that's like even the countries that may seem like they are not capable to fight or to have any type of war, like small countries that may not have war material. Hey, let them come on up. Lord is calling everybody up because you're gonna need all the material possible to fight against God, and they're gonna lose that battle. So that was my take on that, Nate.
So no, I thought that Matthew 24 was perfect. I was thinking about how and this was like 10 maybe 10 years ago. I was watching a lesson by Brother Elijah.
Hmm.
I think it was about Armageddon, and he was like, if the Lord doesn't come back, we're gonna kill each other. Everybody, we're gonna go extinct. It was like, that's why the Lord gotta come back, because we're gonna go extinct.
Right.
He was like, he's not gonna let that happen. And
Hmm.
so I think everything that's happening, especially with, like we said, every week is something new.
Hmm.
Regarding wars, regarding nuclear war, stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
think that's indicative of us just being, closer than we might think to
Mm.
the coming of the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely some trying time. Definitely trying times. And yeah, like you said, yeah, we'll definitely kill each other. We'll go
Yeah.
extinct.
Hmm. That,
Just uh-huh.
ever since he said that, I always think about that. He was like, if you don't come back, we're gonna kill each other.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess we can see the job that man has done. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, we see the job that man has done. So anything else on that before we move to the next one?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So we'll stop sharing that right there. Now we just got back today, and just got back today and wanted to make sure we can go ahead and get this episode in tonight. But as you can see from the title of this particular episode, it's called "Discerning Prophecy." Is it too late to get back to morality? And the next couple articles, which is our last two before we close out, um, the reason why we want to title it that is because you'll see people trying to do things as far as like serve God and represent God and stuff like that, and try to fight to stand up for God as best as they know how. And then at the same time, you have the opposition from people in the world. But the question on the table is it too late to return back to morality? And the answer to that is, it's not too late as an individual to turn back to God, but as far as the world is concerned, you know, it's too late. And what I mean by that is we have gotten so far away from God that the mindset of man won't turn back. If it slapped him in the face, like if repentance just slapped him in the face, and said, repent, 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 turn from sin, mankind still won't do it. That's why uh if you look at in Revelation, it talks about, they're gonna run to the Revelation 6, I believe, it talk about when the Lord come back and he gonna, and all these different things that's gonna take place before the Lord get ready to bring out his destruction on the world. Men gonna run into the mountains and tell the rocks in the mountains to fall on us and hide us, but still they're not gonna repent from their sorceries. Revelation 18 lets you know they're not gonna repent from their sorceries and stuff like that. And this is why the Lord has to come back. But like I say, as far as individuality is concerned, it's not too late to turn back to morality. The Lord always has that option on the table, even when we get down to when things gonna start to pick up and all the destruction gonna start to take place and stuff like that. Look, the Lord is still gonna have mercy presented out here for individuals to make that choice. But as far as the world is concerned, you know, the sin has gotten out of hand, and the Lord makes his return. That's when you rouse up that lion, when that sin gets out of hand. You look back in history, look back in the Bible, and see how the Lord brought down kingdoms when the sin just got out of control. And that's where we are now. So I wanted to bring that up because of this particular article here. And the effort is good. The effort is good, but I mean, we shouldn't even got this far in the first place. You know, the effort is good. So Nate, if you can, um, just go ahead and read that, and we'll discuss that after you get done reading it.
Last month, an Indiana state. Oh,
Wait a minute. Oh man, hold on.
I can share the article.
Can you put it up? Can you bring it up?
Yes.
Oh, I can bring it up. I just it was taking too long to close out, and I closed it up by mistake. Okay, here we go. All right, let me go share it again. All right, all right. Read the title, and then we can go to it.
Okay. String artist. Okay. A bill to require schools to promote marriage before having kids has divided Indiana. Advocates of the success sequence say a simple formula staves off poverty for nearly everyone. Critics disagree.
Mm,
Last month, an Indiana state senator made a bold promise: require public schools to teach the importance of getting married before having children, and nearly all students will prosper later in life.
mm,
The chance of them being poor is almost zero, Senator Spencer Deary, a Republican, told legislators. I think from an anti poverty standpoint, he added, his voice rising with excitement, this might be the most single important thing we could be teaching. The concept Deary was referring to is known as the success sequence, a three-step formula
Touted.
con- touted
They're touted.
touted by conservatives for boosting young people's chances of financial stability. First, obtain a high school diploma or higher, then find a full-time job, finally get married before having children. Research from the Conservative American Enterprise Institute and the Institute for Family Studies says that by completing these milestones in the prescribed order, 90% of millennials have avoided being poor by the time they reach their early 30s.
97%. So that's pretty good. Wow.
Have a child before marriage, the researchers warn, and chances of ending up in a lower income bracket grow significantly. Some of the things that we throw at trying to fix poverty are well intended, but not always effective. Deary, a co author of Indiana's Success Sequence Bill, said in a phone interview, I think this is worth a try. It really
Mm,
costs us very little, if anything at all. But
wow.
not everyone shares excitement over the success sequence, which may come across as innocuous
Innocuous.
advice.
Hmm.
But detractors say is built upon dubious data, overlooks racial disparities, and shames students who are raised in single parent households. Skeptics such as Matt Bruning, founder of the Left Wing People's Policy Project think tank, also argue that the success sequence puts the blame for poverty on individuals rather than forcing the government to examine systemic solutions, such as broadening public benefits. If you're conservative, you don't want to see these benefits expanded, he said. So you need some other narrative. And the other narrative is the only reason we have poverty is because people won't follow these simple steps. After appearing nearly 2 decades ago in a report for the nonprofit National Campaign to Prevent Teen Pregnancy, the success sequence gained traction in 2009 after it was promoted by the centrist think tank, the Brookings Institution. In recent years, the success sequence has enjoyed a wave of interest thanks to model legislation from the Heritage Foundation, the conservative think tank behind the Republican policy roadmap, Project 2025.
Mm,
In Utah, where state law already requires that sex education in public schools stresses abstinence, lawmakers passed a resolution in 2024 to encourage schools to incorporate the success sequence into their curricula. In
mm.
Alabama and Tennessee, lawmakers passed sequence laws in 2025 that will require educators to incorporate it into their lessons starting in the 2026-2027 school year. Other states, including Ohio, Kentucky, Mississippi, and Texas, have introduced similar bills. Indiana's success sequence proposal, Senate Bill 88, passed the state Senate last week 39 to 9, with
Mm.
all 9 no votes from Democrats. It is expected to go before the state house as soon as next week.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Just finish that. Finish reading it. Just finish reading it.
Republican State Senator Gary Byrne, who proposed the bill, told NBC News that the success sequence is common sense. It's just something simple that you want to put in the back of the children's minds, Byrne said. Wait till you have that full time job and get married. That way you're working as a family unit. And instead of just being a single mom or dad, the team is going to be far more able to be successful. State
Mm.
Senator Shelley Yoder, one of the bill's Democrat opponents, called it inappropriate for a public school education. She worried that it would make students born out of wedlock or who only have one parent feel like they were inherently bad, especially because the bill would add the success sequence to Indiana's good citizenship instruction. That curriculum encourages public school children to embrace the 13 principles, including being honest, respecting authority, and resolving conflicts without violence. The student sitting there is going, huh, my parents aren't good citizens. Questioning good citizenship because I was a surprise or my mom got pregnant and had me before getting married or never got married, Yoder said.
Okay,
Jonathan,
hold it right there. Hold it right there, Nate. Okay, Nate, let me ask you something. So
uh,
so so is it about the parents or is it about the children and their future?
it sounds like they're making it about the parents,
Right. It sounds like they're making it about the parents, right? You know,
at least on
I
the more progressive side.
say it again.
I said at least on the progressive side.
Well, is that the progressive side? The progressive side will be the Republican side, right?
Mm, I I think the
Yeah.
progressive side would be
The
liberal.
li- the liberal side is the Democratic side, and
Right.
they're the one they're the ones. I just want to point it out because black people for the most part fall in the Democratic Party, right? But they're the ones that's pushing against that, and the excuse is, well, the child's gonna be sitting there like, huh? My parents are bad because they're single. No, no. What they're telling you is to avoid what your parents did. Not that they're bad or good, but in order for your future to be more successful or somewhat successful, don't do the same thing. But I just want to point that out because that's why I asked, that's why we pose the question, is it too late to get back to morality? Because like for example, you have individuals that want to do right, you know, because even the Lord lets us know that, right? I mean, and Nate, you a prime example yourself in your own household, how it's best to just wait on the Lord. Not to say that they were going that far, but I'm just saying, like we talk about in Romans chapter 2, how man has a natural law inside of him, right? And it's almost like common sense. What I would say is to serve the Lord first, right? Keep the commandments, be obedient to his word. Okay. Then as a man, go get a job. Go get a job, do what you're supposed to do to please the Lord. Find you a wife. Get to know her. You know what I'm saying? Meet her in the head before you meet her in the bed. Then afterwards, y'all come together once y'all make that covenant, then have children. Now the thing said that's 97% successful, didn't it?
Yes. Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? So like what's wrong with that? And that's why I pose the question, is it too late to get back to morality? Because for the most part, the world don't want to hear that. But at the same time, is it not true that even in the schools they trying to promote the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which includes the LGBT community? Like and from the Democratic side, they push that. We don't have no parties at all. But I'm just saying I point that out because Israel, the one who for the most part a lot of times are a representation of the Democratic Party, we are the ones that's supposed to set the example. If anybody is going to push righteousness, it should be us. But as you can see, coming from the liberal side or the Democratic side, they're absolutely, they like I said in Indiana, it was 30, what they say, 39-9, I think.
That's
And
what the
all
numbers.
nine, what was it, 39? Let's see here. Was it 39-9? I done lost
Yeah.
my place now.
It's
Yeah,
right there.
39. Huh?
Go down for the picture of the guy. Go down.
Yeah,
Yep, right there.
okay, there. 39 Indiana Success Sequence Proposal, Senate Bill 88, passed the state Senate last week, 39-9, with all nine no votes from Democrats. I just thought that's kind of strange. But this is why, you know, individually we can get back to morality, but as far as the world is concerned, it's just not gonna happen. Not now. The Lord gonna have to come back and reign righteousness. So I think you were at where were you at? John Butcher?
Yes.
Okay.
Jonathan Butcher, a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation, said teachers are experienced in addressing sensitive topics and know how to teach information in an age appropriate way. Presenting these as a fact should not be done as an insult to anyone, he said. It can be done successfully. This is important information that we shouldn't withhold from young people. Research tracking the true success of the success sequence has been mixed. A 2021 study funded by the Department of Health and Human Services found that young adults who graduate from high school, have full-time work, and get married are less likely to be impoverished, but achieving those life milestones, regardless of order, was what was associated with this economic outcome.
Mm,
And a 2015 study from the Brookings Institution found that Black adults who follow the three steps in order are significantly less likely to reach the middle class than white Americans who do the same. Brad Wilcox, a co-author of the 2017 study and the 2022 success sequence study, conceded the Brookings Institution finding, but he added, "There's no question that African Americans who have gotten at least a high school degree, are working full time, and are married are doing markedly better than their peers who haven't followed or aren't following those 3 steps."
Mm,
Despite the concerns raised by some of his colleagues, Byrne, the Indiana senator, sees the framework as a simple solution to a complex problem.
mm,
"This just gives those kids a tool," he said. Here's the way out of that poverty."
mm. Wow. So Nate, it may not be 100%, right? You know what I'm saying? But like they say, 97% of people are successful with it. But but when you think about it, man, I mean, it's almost like common sense. Like I say, like you, I know for sure. You know what I'm saying? Just in my family, I know for sure it works. And then some other families I see, even at our church, when people do it right, and even if they messed up and they try to get it right by serving God and trying to fix things, they end up being successful. So I just think that, like you said, giving the kids tools to be successful. My question is, what's wrong with that though? Like, what you think?
1 second.
Uh,
So, I really think this is just, I mean, because at the end of the day, this is the standard or the formula that, God gave ultimately.
mm,
He said that from the beginning, that a man should leave his father and mother and cleave unto his wife. This is, really under the guise of economics, and different things like that. But really it just ties back to the Lord's way being perfect. This is the
mm,
way it was intended to be, which is
yeah,
why you would see success in relation to doing it the way the Lord had it intended for it to be in the first place.
yeah,
Um, so like I said, it's under the guise of, let's give them this so that they can be successful. Well, of course they're
mm,
going to be successful. This is, you know, the way that it was supposed to be,
yeah, hmm,
for you to be set up for a wife. You don't want to you can't just get a wife, just fresh out of school. You don't have nothing set up for yourself. You're typically not going to do that. You're going to have something set up,
hmm,
you're going to have money coming in and stuff like that to take care of your family. You're going to marry the woman you love. Of course, her being under the same belief system as you, and then you guys are
hmm,
gonna start your family. That's the way it's supposed to be. So,
hmm,
it doesn't
yeah,
surprise me at all that they found a 97% success rate with those who tried it. And then
mm,
when I see Democrats, are saying, well, maybe we shouldn't do this because it'll offend the kids you know don't who don't have a two-parent household. Well, it's not talking about a two-parent household. It's talking about um, the future of the child, what will give you the most success? This
hmm,
isn't even it from the standpoint that they're coming from. It's not even a moral thing. It's just this will give you success, so you should try this. But of
yeah,
course, it's got that ring of
hmm,
what thus saith the Lord.
mm,
And when people hear that ring, it sounds I'm sorry, biblically rooted.
yeah,
Their spidey senses automatically start tingling, and they wanna find a way to be like, "Nah, that's not right. You don't wanna do that."
right. Well, you
So,
you you just you pointed out something. That's what it is. It sounds blah, 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 it sounds Bible rooted.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
And so
I
when
and
they
I
when
guess
they hear that
uh-huh.
when they hear that, they automatically, especially, on the liberal side, that's what, their accountability is their arch nemesis.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. I
Not
guess the proof.
claiming a side, I'm just saying that's what I noticed.
Oh yeah, no, notice. Yeah, I guess the proof is in the pudding, though, right?
Mhm.
I mean, because based on the statement that he was saying, how it can help with the poverty. The proof is in the pudding. Like I've seen Okay, well, I can give myself as an example.
Mm,
It was hard for me and my wife, um, because we came together in the bed first before we had any type of plan. You know what I'm saying? So now looking at this right here, I can imagine now if I would have got all my ducks in a row. You know what I'm saying? Not laying around, doing the things on a righteous path, as opposed to just, trying to mess around, and focus. You know what I'm saying? Got out of which I did, graduate from school, got a job, or went and got some further education at the time, and got everything sorted out like the Lord wants us to do. Then find a wife, get with my wife, and have everything set up in order. And then I'm sure good afternoon, good evening. Also, I'm sure we could have started off better than how we started, how we came out the gate. You know what I'm saying? So we came out the gate first year. We had our daughter. You know what I'm saying? But we didn't have no type of plan and none of that together. And then we had our son, and then we had our youngest daughter. And as time got on, like we started moving toward 30 years of age and stuff like that. Then that's when we started to get settled, as far as the poverty is concerned. The Lord start to loosen up things, you know what I'm saying? But it was hell. It was hell those first 10 years, man. So from experience, I can look back, and if I had to do it over again, I would do it somewhat like they're saying, especially now knowing and having understanding on the Bible. You know what I'm saying? I would actually do the things necessary first to be able to get a wife, take care of her, then lay with her and raise children, as opposed to just laying around, you know what I'm saying, and not having no type of plan and just looking at sex as just being fun or whatever, not caring about nothing, because it did bring poverty. You know what I'm saying? So I can understand exactly where they're coming from, and I agree that we should do it. They should do it that way. And I've seen other people that have done the same thing. Mess around, sleep around, end up being single, raising children by themselves. A lot of women do that nowadays. They get with these men, and the men don't take care of their children. And guess what? The women have to take care of the child by themselves, and then a lot of times they end up on the welfare system. Then a child grows up in that system like that, not knowing any better, grows up in the project mentality type mindset, welfare mentality type mindset. I guess I know someone close to us that's in that same position even now today. You know what I'm saying? But so I think the article, trying to push that morality, that's a great start. The only problem is that we should have never got away from it in the first place.
mm.
And can't blame, understanding the word now. If Israel would have been on the job doing the right thing, representing God like we supposed to, then the majority of the world, would have more than likely been on the right path as well.
Yeah.
So that was my take on that. Good stuff on that, Nate. So we're
Yeah.
gonna go to the next one here, the last one. And thank you guys for tuning in this evening. Once again, like I said, we had to cancel Tuesdays for tonight. Um, but we were able to get it in tonight, which is what we wanted to do. Make sure we got something in this week. And we're gonna bring up our last article, and then we're gonna open up the scriptures, and we'll close out after that. So let's see here. Is that okay? It is off now. All right, cool. All right, so let's bring up this last one. All right. All right, Nate, if you want to go ahead and read that, if you don't mind.
Right. Keeps. In-N-Out Burger's tiny Bible verse references have always been easy
Wait,
to
wait, wait,
miss.
wait, read the title. Read the title.
Oh, I'm sorry. In-N-Out president refuses to remove Bible verses from packaging despite renewed backlash.
Okay, so before you go forward, so In and Out is a burger joint, It's a famous burger joint, and we saw it. I think the first time I saw it when we went out to Texas was, I think it was Houston. Where was no? It was Dallas. Yeah, Dallas. We because matter of fact, we were going to see the house in Dallas from the TV show Dallas, and on our way out there, we stopped at In and Out Burger. But it's like a famous burger joint out, like a McDonald's. But I know it's definitely like closer toward the West, like Midwest and stuff like that. Um, so I just want to kind of point that out. That's what this place is. Okay. All right, you good now?
In-N-Out Burger's tiny Bible verse references have always been easy to miss. Tucked under soda cups and burger wrappers, they are now at the center of a very loud argument, and the person in charge is not blinking. President Lindsay Snyder has told critics that the verses are staying, turning a quiet family tradition into a full-blown cultural line in the sand. Her stance lands right in the middle of a broader fight over how much personal faith belongs in public-facing brands. For fans, the verses are part of the chain's DNA. For opponents, they are a reminder that even a drive-through can feel like a battleground over religion and identity. Just scroll down. To understand why Lindsay Snyder is digging in, it helps to know how those Bible references got there in the first place. She has explained that it was her Uncle Rich who started printing the verses on cups and wrappers in the early 1990s, just
Mm,
before he died, turning a personal conviction into a subtle design choice that outlived him on burger wrappers, fry trays, and hot cocoa cups.
mm,
That origin story matters to Snyder, who grew up inside the company and sees the packaging not as a marketing gimmick, but as a tribute to Rich and the faith that shaped him. The practice itself goes back even further in spirit. Supporters point out that In-N-Out has been printing Bible verses on its products since the late 80s, long before social media outrage cycles, and that the tradition is rooted in the beliefs of the Snyder family rather than in a focus group branding strategy. One post praising the company notes that In-N-Out has printed these references for decades and credits Rich Snyder with starting the practice that his niece is now defending.
mm,
For all the noise, the verses themselves are tiny, almost like inside jokes for people who know where to look. On the soda cups, the reference is John 3:16, the verse that begins, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son." A choice that has been documented both by fans and by explainers that break down exactly which verse appears where on the packaging. One breakdown of the design notes that soda cups carry John 3:16, while other items reference different passages. Enthusiasts have cataloged the full lineup in almost collector level detail. A fan group lists soda cups with John 3:16, milkshake cups with Proverbs 3 and 5, hamburger and cheeseburger wrappers with Revelations 3 and 20, and double wrappers with another verse, even noting that holiday cups sometimes feature Isaiah 9 and 6 for Christmas. That kind of granular inventory shared in posts that spell out soda cups, John, milkshake, Proverbs, hamburger, and more shows how closely some customers track the soda details that others barely notice.
mm,
Lindsay Snyder's public stand against that backdrop, Lindsay Snyder has moved from quiet heir to very visible defender. She is the sole owner of In-N-Out Burger and serves as its president, a role that gives her full control over whether those verses stay or go.
mm,
In a recent message highlighted by supporters, she is described as the person who owns In-N-Out Burger as its sole heir and president, and as someone who vows to keep the Bible verses on the packaging despite backlash, with one post praising how Lindsay Snyder is holding that line.
mm,
Her refusal to budge is not just about corporate branding, it is about personal testimony. Snyder has spoken openly about her Christian faith and about walking through trials, including loss and addiction, framing her leadership as an extension of that story rather than a separate, sanitized corporate persona. In one reflection, she talks about those trials, including loss and addiction, and ties them to her desire to point people toward the Bible references that now spark so much debate.
mm.
The renewed controversy did not come out of nowhere. Over the past year, progressive activists and online campaigns have pushed harder for brands to strip away overt religious messaging, and In and Out has been a recurring target.
Oh yeah, you were
During
right
one
about the progressives. Yeah, you were right. My bad. Sorry about that earlier.
no problem. During one event framed around evangelism, Snyder was praised for standing firm as calls to secularize the chain grew louder, with supporters highlighting how, during the Make Heaven Crowded push, Lindsay refused to treat the verses as negotiable. That
Wow.
defiance has turned her into a hero in some corners of Christian social media and a villain in parts of the activist left. Posts cheering her on describe how she was made has made it clear that the Bible verses printed on In and Out burger packaging are not going anywhere, even despite massive criticism. Language that has been repeated by groups that frame the fight as a test of religious freedom. One widely shared message declares, despite massive criticism, Lizzie Snyder has made it clear that the Bible verses printed on In and Out burger packaging are not going anywhere,
Mm,
casting her as a model of resolve for those who want the despite backlash to fail.
wow.
For fans who share Snyder's beliefs, the verses are not just harmless. They are a quiet encouragement. One Christian advocacy group celebrated her stance by reminding followers that for decades, In-N-Out Burger has had a unique little tradition of printing Bible verse references on its packaging, asking readers if they had ever noticed those little details and praising the company for keeping them.
Mm,
That post, which talks about for decades in an Outburger and highlights the Outburger tradition, treats the packaging as a rare example of a major brand refusing to hide its religious roots. Others go further, framing Snyder's decision as a kind of witness in a skeptical culture. One Instagram post describes how she owns In N Out Burger as its sole heir and president and praises her for vowing to keep the verses, quoting Matthew 5 and 16 about letting your light shine before others.
mm.
That same message, tagged with biblical wisdom and food and faith, celebrates the way the chain has quietly included Bible verse references on its packaging. For years, presenting the more overt defense as a natural extension of that quiet practice.
Wow. So I wanted to bring that up. I wanted us to read that, and that's our last one for tonight. But what's wrong with that?
Nothing.
Like, right? Like, what's wrong with, especially in the country that we are considered, freedom of speech and stuff like that. What's wrong with a business owner putting Bible verses on their packaging? It's kind of reminds me of when they wanted to get the Bible out of the commandments out of school. And just thinking about that, just thinking about the Bible verses that the lady is using. Hold on. The Bible verses that the lady is using that come from the Bible. So regardless of whether she excuse me has a full understanding or not, it's still the word of God though, you know. And so that's why once again we call this particular episode this evening, is it too late to get back to morality? We read earlier in Matthew 24 about the great tribulation. And if you don't know anything about the great tribulation is mainly to come against those that are willing to stand for Jesus. And I'm not talking about your average everyday Christian. However, at the end of the day, however, you're gonna have some people that's gonna convert at the end. But just with the little knowledge that they have, you have some people that are willing to stand for the word, and on the opposing side, you see that that's a problem. So this is where we are in society. The world really doesn't want to have anything to do with God, and that's what I think. If you don't like it, just don't go there. You don't gotta make a big fuss about it. But those same people that fuss about things that have God involved are the same individuals that want to push all the wickedness. so it's almost like you got a fight between righteousness and evil going on, righteousness and wickedness going on. Um, but I do commend the individuals that we read about this evening that are trying to do right. They may not know righteousness as far as like what we know, but like Romans 2 talks about that natural law inside of this man, and at least they try. You know what I'm saying? Um, and I think trying would get a lot further with God than not trying at all. Like you got to have something to work with. Like for example, even with Cornelius in Acts chapter 10, he prayed to God always and gave alms to the people. The people talking about Israel, and the Lord sent Gabriel to give him understanding. Showed him what to do, what he needed to do to get understanding. But guess what? He has something to work with. He wasn't just flat out wicked. You know. But what's your take on that, Nate?
I think first and foremost, I think it's funny that if that was if they did something for a LGBT or a Pride Month or something like that, nobody would bat an eye.
Mm.
Nobody would care. But I just think it goes to show that eventually, for the name of the Lord, or just being a true follower of Christ, you're going to end up, being persecuted when it comes down to it. And like you said, it's just that's just what the world has come to. So
Right. Yeah.
crazy.
And it's been
But
around for a while.
anything that threatens their freedom to live however they want to live, without a moral standard is you know, somehow they spin it to be immoral,
Right. Right.
because
Yeah.
I mean, before you know it, they're gonna be demanding that Chick-fil-A is open on Sunday.
Even though it's the wrong day.
Even though it's the wrong day.
Right.
Anything that has, like we talked about in the last one, that seems to have anything to do with God, they have an issue with it, you know?
Yeah. That brings something
Somebody
to
said in the comments, they said, "If you don't like it, then don't eat there." That's
right.
absolutely right. If you don't like it, don't eat there.
Yeah.
You
Just
don't
don't
gotta
eat
eat there,
there.
you know? But how
Yeah.
you gonna tell a business owner how to operate their business?
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you know what? You said something that brought something to mind. I'm trying to see if I can find it. Oh yeah, so it's Isaiah 5:20, right?
Huh,
Isaiah 5:20 says, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. And like you were saying, they somehow take what's righteous and make it immoral.
right.
You know what I'm saying? And
Yep,
so that right there, just we ended on this right here, just letting us know that this is why the Lord has to return. You know what I'm saying? Has to return and set things up properly. Isaiah 24, right quick. Let's look at this, and I just want to read the scripture right quick, and then after that, if you have anything, then we'll address that, and then we can close it out. We'll be done.
okay.
But Isaiah 24, I forgot to bring me some water in here, man, or some hydration, man. I completely forgot. And my throat is itching, but I can't wait to go get something to drink. So Isaiah 24, and if you can, start this at verse 1 for me.
Behold, the Lord maketh the earth empty, and maketh it waste, and turneth it upside down, and scattereth abroad the inhabitants thereof. And it
Hmm.
shall be as with the people, so with the priest; as with the servant, so with his master; as
Hmm.
with the maid, so with her mistress; as with the buyer, so with the seller; as with the lender, so with the borrower; as with the taker of usury, so with the giver of usury to him.
So it's almost
Then
like the Lord is talking about how everybody's going to be on the same playing field, because this is referring to a future event that's coming. And the reason why this has to happen is because the morality is going out the window. The morality or the righteousness in the eyes of God is to obey his commandments, to be obedient to his commandments, be obedient to his word. And that's all we have to do. When you take that off the table, it allows sin to now come in. So since we've as far as mankind is concerned, since we've allowed sin to come in, it's what the Lord gonna do when He returns. Verse 1, it says, "Behold, the Lord make the earth empty and make it waste and turn it upside down and scattereth abroad the inhabitants thereof." Because when He returns, He just bringing, it's gonna be all type of destruction that the Lord is gonna bring. Then, excuse me, in verse 2, He says, "And it shall be as with the people, so with the priests." Because the priest is supposed to set the example. You know what I'm saying? Like you have the priest, then you have the common people, that are, being taught or led by the priest, right? Get understanding from the priest. But the priest, they so gone that, hey, the Lord gonna look at everybody as the same. And it shall be as with the people, so with the priest, as with the servant, so with his master, as with the maid, so with the mistress, as with the buyer, the seller, lender, so with the borrower, the taker of usury, so with the giver of usury to him. So everybody gonna be in the same playing field. What it said in verse 3.
The land shall be utterly emptied and
Mm,
utterly spoiled, for the Lord hath spoken this word.
uh-huh.
The earth mourneth and fadeth away, the world languish and fadeth away. The
Uh-huh.
haughty people of the earth do languish.
That's right,
The
because
earth
the Lord gonna
also
bring it down. He gonna bring the world down. He said the land shall be utterly empty and utterly spoiled, for the Lord have spoken this word. And we're gonna see why though, right? Gonna see why the Lord is gonna do this. See, we know that people talk about how much they love God and stuff like that. But if you understood God, and understood the destruction that He gonna bring, it'll cause you to, like I say all the time, move about differently. But He's gonna come back. He's gonna come back and set up peace on this earth and stuff like that. He's gonna do that. But before we can get to that, this right here has to happen, which is why we're not gonna get back to morality, because the Lord word got to come to pass. And he done set back. He done watched everything that's going on in the world. We done took this grace and we done flipped this upside down. The Lord done had mercy after mercy, grace after grace, giving people opportunities, chance after chance after chance. And guess what mankind is doing? We just don't want to, we don't want to accept that. So because of that, the earth gonna mourn, because He gonna bring that destruction. The earth gonna mourn, earth mourn and fade away. The world languish and fade away. The hardy people of the earth do languish. What else is saying, verse 5?
the earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof,
And this
because
why
they
we
have
can't get back to morality though. It's defiled. You got some individuals trying to do righteous, but that's not going to outweigh all the wickedness going on. I mean, we're moving down to a point where, for the ones that are trying to live right, the ones that are trying to serve God in spirit and the truth, like ourselves, right? Like the people, the world gonna turn against us. That shows you how far gone away from God that this world is, the world where the world is now. How far gone away we are. And notice what he said. He said the earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof. And what's the problem, Nate? Because what?
because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant.
Oh, you see that? He said, because this is how the world is now defiled, because they have transgressed the laws. They've broken God's laws, broken God's commandments, right? Changed the ordinances. The ordinances that the Lord put out there for us to follow, for us to obey. Guess what? Mankind has changed it. And then on top of that, the last one here, he said, they have broken the everlasting covenant. So as far as us, is it too late to get back to morality? As far as mankind is concerned, it's not gonna happen. The sentence is already been given. The destruction is already gonna come. And then we gonna get back to morality based on the word of God when the Lord returns. We've had an opportunity from Ham all the way down to Japheth and his sons. We had an opportunity and we blew it. So that's my take on that. What you got, Nate?
Um, I have, in relation to the article, I have Mark 8
Okay.
and verse 34.
Mark 8. Let me get it right quick. Okay, let me know you're ready.
You can go ahead.
And when he had called the people unto him with his disciples also, he said unto them, whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, but whosoever shall lose his life for my sake and the gospel's, the same shall save it.
Mhm.
For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? Whosoever therefore shall be ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him also shall the Son of Man be ashamed when he come in the glory of his Father with the holy angels.
Right. So when I read this article, and this is somebody who, doesn't have truth, understanding, um, according to the Bible, but they have a zeal where, they want to serve God. And I think that can be a testament to us if we do claim to have the truth and we do have understanding. We can't be afraid to, you know, stand, as they would say, stand on business. You know what I mean? You got to
Right.
stand 10 toes on this word because ultimately nothing you do in this world matters, if it causes you to lose your soul. So we got to
Hmm.
be confident in the word of God and in God himself.
Praise God. Yes, sir. Well, I guess yeah, anything else on that before we close it?
Oh, that's it.
All right. Well, praise God. Good stuff, man. Peace to you, brother Cam. Thank you all for tuning in this evening. And Tuesday we'll be back to our regular scheduled programming. Thank you all for tuning in. And once again, man, we hope that we're able to edify you according to the word of God. And you guys have a great evening.
Peace.
Peace.